You open your phone to check one thing. 20 minutes later, you are 3 layers deep into a stranger's tragedy on the other side of the planet, your chest tight, and you could not say why you are still reading. This has a name now. People call it doomscrolling. But the urge underneath it is far older than your phone, older than the news, older than writing itself. For almost the entire history of our species, your survival ran on one simple rule. Notice the bad thing first. The ancestor who heard a branch snap and assumed danger lived to see the morning. The one who heard the same snap and assumed nothing got dragged into the dark. Good news could wait. A ripe fruit tree, a sunny afternoon. Those would still be there later. Bad news could not wait. A predator, a rival, a poisoned berry. You needed those the instant they appeared. Miss it once, and there was no second mistake. So evolution built a brain that treats negative information as more urgent, more real, and more worth your attention than anything good. Psychologists have a blunt name for this tilt. They call it the negativity bias. In 2001, a team led by psychologist Roy Baumeister reviewed decades of studies and published a paper whose title says, "All of it. Bad is stronger than good." Almost everywhere they looked, the same pattern held. A single criticism cuts deeper than a compliment lifts you. Losing $100 hurts roughly twice as much as finding $100 feels good. One bad first impression can take a dozen good encounters to undo. Your mind is not balanced between the two. It leans hard toward the bad. And you can watch it happen in real time. Researchers led by John Cacioppo showed people images while recording the electrical activity of their brains. Pleasant pictures, like food or a smiling face. Neutral ones, like a plate or a hairdryer. And distressing ones, like a wound or a weapon. The negative images set off a much larger spike of activity, and they set it off faster. There is a small structure buried deep in your head called the amygdala, your built-in alarm. Neuroscientist Joseph LeDoux showed it receives a threat signal a fraction of a second before the thinking part of your brain even arrives. You flinch before you understand what you are looking at. Maybe you are thinking this is just a few anxious people. In 2019, researcher Stuart Soroka tested it across 17 countries on 6 continents. He played people news clips and measured their bodies, heart rate and skin response, the physical fingerprint of stress. People reacted more strongly to negative news almost everywhere he looked. Different cultures, different languages, the same wiring underneath. This is standard human equipment. Here is where it turns against you. For almost all of history, this alarm was useful because the bad news in your life was real, close, and rare. A threat meant something near you, something you could run from or fight, and then it was over. Then we built a machine that pipes you every disaster on the planet, all day, with no distance and no ending. The news industry understood your wiring long before you did. There is an old line in newsrooms: if it bleeds, it leads. A broadcast that opens with a warm, hopeful story loses to the one that opens with fire and sirens, because your ancient alarm cannot pull itself away from fire and sirens. Every headline, every push notification, every autoplay is shaped to pull the one lever evolution left exposed. Fear earns the click, calm does not, and the feed adds a second hook on top of the first. You never know what the next swipe will bring. Most are forgettable. Then, every so often, something shocking. That pattern, a reward that arrives at random, is the exact design that makes a slot machine impossible to walk away from. The psychologist B.F. Skinner showed decades ago that a random payout keeps an animal pulling a lever far longer than a predictable one ever could. Your thumb is the lever. The occasional jolt of outrage or fear is the payout. All of this leaves a mark on you. In 2022, a researcher named Brian McLaughlin at Texas Tech studied people with what he called problematic news consumption, the ones who genuinely cannot stop checking. They reported far higher anxiety and stress, and more physical symptoms, fatigue, aches, broken sleep, than people taking in the very same events in smaller doses. The events were identical. The difference was the dose, and the inability to look away. There is a slower effect too, and it quietly rewrites how you see everything. Decades ago, a researcher named George Gerbner noticed that the people who watched the most news and television came to believe the world was far more dangerous than it truly was. He called it mean world syndrome. The more frightening material you take in, the more you overestimate the crime and danger right outside your own door, even while the real numbers fall. And for a great many things, the numbers are falling. This is the part your brain will argue with. Over the last few decades, the share of people living in extreme poverty has dropped by more than half. Child mortality has reached the lowest point in recorded history. Literacy has never been higher. Hans Rosling spent years putting these facts in front of audiences, and he found that most people, including experts, were convinced the world was getting worse while it was measurably getting better. We are not wrong at random. We are wrong in one specific direction, again and again, and that direction is down. So picture what is really happening when you lie awake scrolling at midnight. A brain shaped on the savannah is being handed thousands of threats it can do nothing about, from places it will never go, about people it will never meet. It cannot tell that a disaster 10,000 miles away is not a predator at the edge of your camp. It treats every one of them like that branch snapping in the dark. So it keeps you scanning, keeps you tense, keeps you reaching for the next headline, waiting for the piece of information that will finally let you feel safe. That information never comes, because the danger was never yours to solve. Here is what I want you to walk away with. Your pull toward bad news is the oldest and most reliable part of you, doing exactly the job it was built for, inside a world that completely overwhelmed it. The feeling that you must know right now what terrible thing happened today is a Stone Age survival instinct being harvested for your attention. You cannot delete the instinct. You can stop handing it the lever on demand. Decide when you look, instead of letting the alarm decide for you. Put the threat back where it belongs, at arm's length, in a world you can actually reach. The people in the room with you, the street you live on, the life directly in front of you. That is the only ground your ancient brain was ever meant to guard. And lately, it has been watching everywhere except there. So before you open the feed one more time tonight, ask yourself a single question. Is this a threat I can actually do something about? Or just one my brain can't stop staring at?